magic comb. Give it to your wife. The more she combs her hair with it, the more your money multiplies. And she must never make her hair again. For a moment, Uyana forgot how to breathe. Money. Real money. His heart began to race. Then the old man continued. But there is one condition. The smile on Uyana's face disappeared. Your wife will never bear children again. Silence. The room suddenly felt colder. What? Uyana shouted. The native doctor remained calm. I said your wife will never conceive again. Uyana stared at him. His lips trembled. We have only one child. His voice cracked. We were hoping for more. The old man shrugged. Then forget about the comb. He stretched out his hand. Give it back. For several seconds, Uyana stared at the comb. His mind became a battlefield. One side reminded him of his dreams. A house, a car, a better future. The other side reminded him of his wife, Alice, the woman who had suffered beside him for years. The woman who never complained. The woman who stayed even when there was nothing to stay for. Give me the comb, the native doctor repeated. But Uyana slowly withdrew his hand. No, Baba. The old man looked at him. I will discuss it with my wife first. For the first time, the native doctor smiled. A wise man. Uyana stood up. He tucked the comb carefully inside his shirt and left. Outside, the afternoon sun was merciless. The road was crowded. Commercial buses honked endlessly. Motorcycles squeezed through traffic. Street vendors shouted from every direction. Life moved on as usual. But inside Uyana's heart, everything had changed. He walked slowly. His mind was heavy. Could this really be true? Could one comb change his entire life? As he walked, a young woman carrying sachet water balanced on a bucket passed him. Cold water. Cold water. The sound made him stop. His throat was dry. Very dry. He dipped his hand into his pocket. Nothing. He checked another pocket. Empty. The last pocket. Still nothing. Not even 1 naira. Not even enough to buy a single sachet. The young woman disappeared into the crowd. Uyana stood there for a moment, ashamed. 39 years old. Yet he could not afford ordinary drinking water. A deep sigh escaped him. He continued walking. The further he walked, the heavier his heart became. His landlord had been threatening him. His son's school fees were overdue. The roof of their house leaked whenever it rained. His old phone barely worked. Life had become a daily struggle. Sometimes he wondered if God had forgotten him completely. By the time he reached his neighborhood, sweat covered his body. The area was filled with old buildings and narrow streets. Children played football with a worn-out ball. Women sold food by the roadside. Generators hummed loudly. Life continued, despite hardship. As Uyana approached his house, he saw Alice returning from a faraway neighbor's farm. A bundle of firewood rested on her head. Her clothes were dusty. Her face was tired, yet she still walked with dignity. The moment she saw him, concern filled her eyes. She quickly dropped the firewood. Uyana. She rushed toward him.
Are you all right?
Are you all right?
What happened?
He forced a smile. I am fine. But Alice knew him too well. No, you're not. They entered their house together. The building was old. The furniture looked older. A cracked ceiling fan hung above them. The room carried the silent evidence of years of poverty. Alice sat down. Uyana remained standing. His hands trembled. Then he removed the comb. Alice frowned. What is that? Slowly, he narrated everything. Every word, every warning, every promise. When he finished speaking, silence filled the room. Alice stared at the comb. Then she stared at her husband, then back at the comb. The room suddenly felt too small. You mean? She swallowed. The more I comb my hair, the richer you become. Uyana nodded. And I will never have children again, nor make my hair again. He nodded once more. Alice leaned back. She could not speak immediately. Her eyes became distant. She loved children. She had always dreamed of having a large family, a noisy home, many sons, many daughters. She wanted their current child to have siblings. Now one comb threatened to destroy that dream forever. Tears gathered in her eyes. Uyana looked away. The guilt was already eating him alive. Alice, she raised her hand gently. Then she picked up the comb. She studied it carefully. It looked so ordinary, yet it carried the power to change everything. After several minutes, she looked at her husband. His face was filled with pain, fear, hopelessness, years of suffering. For the first time, Alice truly saw how broken he had become. Slowly, she held his hand. "You are my husband." Uyana looked up. "If this will help us escape this poverty, then I will do it." His eyes widened. "Alice, we will take care of our only child." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "But promise me something. Anything. Never repay my sacrifice with ingratitude." Uyana immediately fell to his knees. "God forbid." His voice shook. "I would never hurt you. I would never abandon you. I would never make you regret this." Alice smiled weakly. Neither of them noticed the strange shadow that moved briefly across the wall. The shadow vanished as quickly as it appeared. Night arrived. Their son slept peacefully. The neighborhood became quieter. Most residents had gone indoors. Only distant generator sounds remained. Alice sat alone in the living room. The magic comb rested in her lap. She stared at it for a long time. Fear gripped her heart. Was she doing the right thing? Would she regret this forever? She closed her eyes. Then she remembered the landlord's insults, the unpaid bills, the hungry nights, the embarrassment, the suffering. Slowly, she lifted the comb and drew it through her hair. Nothing happened. She combed again. Still nothing. A third time. Silence. Alice laughed nervously. Perhaps the old man had deceived them. Perhaps everything was a scam. Then she heard a scream. A loud scream. From the bedroom. "Uyana." Alice jumped up instantly. The comb fell from her hand. She rushed into the room. The sight before her nearly made her collapse. Money. Bundles and bundles of money. They were falling from nowhere. Onto the bed. Onto the floor. Onto Uyana. Onto every corner of the room. Uyana stood frozen. His mouth hung open. His eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. The money kept falling. Like rain. Like a flood. Like heaven itself had opened. Alice covered her mouth. Neither of them could speak. Neither of them could move. Just a few days after money mysteriously began pouring into Uyana's life, people started noticing changes. The man who once borrowed money for transport was suddenly paying cash for everything. The man who once walked under the hot sun because he could not afford a motorcycle was now moving around in expensive Uber vehicles. The man who used to wear faded clothes now dressed like a wealthy businessman. People were confused. Some were jealous. Others were simply curious. On a bright Saturday morning, a moving truck stopped in front of Uyana's old rented apartment. Neighbors immediately abandoned whatever they were doing and gathered outside. Women stood with their arms folded. Children watched excitedly. Even elderly men who usually minded their business sat outside to observe. Furniture was being loaded into the truck. Expensive furniture. Brand new furniture. The kind nobody had ever imagined seeing inside Uyana's house. One woman shook her head. How can somebody become rich this quickly? Another woman clicked her tongue. Only God knows. As Alice supervised the workers, carrying their belongings, one of the neighbors approached her. "Alice, where exactly are you people moving to?" Several ears immediately became alert. Everyone wanted to hear the answer. Alice smiled. She mentioned one of the most expensive residential estates in the city. Immediately, silence fell. The women looked at each other. One almost dropped the bowl she was carrying. Another laughed nervously. "That place?" Alice nodded. "Yes." The woman stared at her. She thought Alice was joking. That estate was where politicians, oil company executives, and wealthy business owners lived. Ordinary people only drove past the gate to admire the houses. Yet Alice was calmly saying she was moving there. The women exchanged glances. Envy began quietly growing in their hearts. As the truck drove away, many of them continued standing there, long after it disappeared. None of them could understand what had happened. Not even Alice herself fully understood it. Because every day felt like a dream. When they arrived at their new home, Alice nearly forgot how to breathe. The gate alone was bigger than their former house. The compound was beautifully paved. Flowers lined the walkways. A security post stood near the entrance. The building itself looked like something from television. Alice slowly stepped out of the car. Her mouth fell open. For several seconds, she could not move. The house had 2 floors. Large glass windows reflected sunlight beautifully. The walls were painted in elegant colors. Everything looked perfect. "Is this really ours?" she asked quietly. Uyana smiled proudly. Yes. Alice felt tears gather in her eyes. All her life she had known struggle. All her life she had known suffering. Now she stood before a house she never imagined entering, let alone owning. That night she walked from room to room, touching walls, opening doors, looking at beautiful furniture. She felt like someone living inside a dream. Within weeks, Uyana expanded his investments. He rented one of the biggest shops in the city for Alice. The shop was located in a busy commercial area. Customers came from different places. Alice became known for selling quality materials. Business flourished. Meanwhile, Uyana established a large supermarket. The supermarket quickly became popular. People admired its size, its cleanliness, its wide variety of products. Money continued flowing. Every night, Alice secretly combed her hair, and every morning more wealth appeared. Neither of them spoke much about the magic comb anymore, but both knew where their sudden fortune came from. Months passed. Then one afternoon, something happened. A young woman walked into Uyana's supermarket. Immediately, several people noticed her. She was beautiful, very beautiful. She moved confidently. Her expensive perfume filled the air. Her fitted gown attracted attention everywhere she passed. She pushed a shopping trolley lazily through the aisles, picking items without checking prices. Imported chocolates, perfumes, cosmetics, expensive beverages. She filled her trolley and approached the cashier. The cashier scanned everything, then announced the total amount. The young woman's expression changed instantly. "What?" The cashier repeated the amount politely. The woman frowned. "This is ridiculous." Several customers turned to look. The cashier attempted to explain, but the woman became louder. "Do you think money grows on trees?" The workers looked confused. Moments earlier, she had been shopping carelessly. Now she was creating a scene. In another supermarket, these things are cheaper. The cashier apologized. The supervisor apologized. Yet she continued complaining. Customers gathered. Everyone was watching. The situation became uncomfortable. Then Uyana stepped out of his office. "What seems to be the problem?" The young woman immediately pointed at the cashier. "Your prices are outrageous." The workers tried explaining. But before anyone finished speaking, Uyana smiled. "It's all right. It's all right." Everyone looked at him. "Give her everything." The workers blinked. "Sir?" "Free of charge." Silence. The entire supermarket became quiet. The cashiers exchanged glances. Even the customers looked shocked. The young woman's anger disappeared immediately. A smile appeared on her face. She casually blew a bubble with her chewing gum. Then she laughed. "Thank you." She picked up her shopping bags, turned around, and walked away confidently, leaving everyone confused. One worker whispered to another, "Did that really happen?" The other worker simply shook his head. The following morning, the same woman returned. This time, she wasn't carrying a trolley. She asked to see Uyana. When they met, she smiled warmly. "I came to thank you." Uyana smiled back. "It was nothing. My name is Sandra. I'm Uyana." That was how it began. A simple conversation, nothing more. At least that was how it started. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Sandra visited regularly. They exchanged phone numbers. Soon they were speaking almost every day. Then came lunch meetings. Then dinners. Then longer outings. Alice remained busy managing her fabric business. She trusted her husband completely. After all, this was the same man who had knelt before her and promised never to hurt her. The same man whose success existed because of her sacrifice. The same man she believed could never betray her. Unfortunately, temptation has a way of changing people. One afternoon, a female employee from the supermarket arrived at Alice's shop. She looked uncomfortable. "Auntie Alice, there is something you should know." Alice smiled. "What is it?" The woman hesitated. Then she explained everything she had been observing. The frequent meetings, the private outings, the growing closeness between Sandra and Uyana. Alice listened, then laughed. "My husband?" "Yes." Alice shook her head. "No." The worker looked surprised. "Auntie, I am serious." Alice smiled again. "You must have misunderstood." The worker left feeling disappointed. Alice continued attending to customers. Deep down, she trusted her husband completely. What she did not know was that at that very moment, Uyana was nowhere near the supermarket. He was inside an expensive hotel. Sandra sat across from him. Soft music played in the background. The room was luxurious. The air conditioner hummed quietly. Sandra was scrolling through her phone while Uyana drank from a glass. Then she suddenly looked up. "There is something I have always wanted to ask." Uyana smiled. "What?" She leaned forward. "How did you become rich? Through inheritance, or you broke through on your own?" The smile on Uyana's face faded. Sandra noticed immediately. "You don't have to tell me if it's a secret." For several seconds, he remained silent. Then he laughed. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps it was foolishness. Perhaps it was the excitement of showing off. Whatever it was, it made him do something dangerous. He began talking. Slowly, carelessly. He told her about his poverty, his visit to the native doctor, the strange warning, the magic comb, Alice's sacrifice, the money, everything. Sandra sat frozen. The chewing gum in her mouth stopped moving. Her eyes widened. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. When Uyana finally finished speaking, silence filled the room. Sandra stared at him for a long time. Then slowly, a strange smile appeared on her face. Not the smile she usually gave him. This one was different. It was cold, calculating, dangerous. And at that exact moment, hundreds of kilometers away, the old native doctor suddenly dropped the cup he was holding. The cup shattered on the floor. His eyes widened. He stood up immediately. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." The fire burning beside him suddenly turned blue. The old man's face became pale. Foolish man. He grabbed his walking stick. The secret has been revealed. Then he looked toward the city with fear in his eyes. Now the real trouble is about to begin. And far away in the hotel room, Sandra's mysterious smile grew even wider. A smile that made even Uyana uncomfortable. A smile that suggested she was already planning something. Something that could destroy everything he had built. Everything. Alice was serving dinner at the dining table when she suddenly burst into laughter. Uyana looked up from his plate. "What is funny?" Alice shook her head. "You will not believe what happened today." For a brief moment, panic flashed across Uyana's face. Had someone seen him? Had Sandra said something? Had the truth finally caught up with him? Alice continued laughing. "One of your workers, Uduak, came to my shop today." Uyana's hand froze halfway to his mouth. "Oh? Yes." Alice smiled. "The girl said she wanted to tell me something important." Uyana's chest tightened. His heart began pounding. "And what did she say?" Alice rolled her eyes. "She said she has been seeing you with one strange woman." The spoon nearly slipped from Uyana's hand, but he quickly forced a laugh. "A strange woman." "Exactly." Alice sat opposite him. "I told her she must be mistaken." Uyana laughed louder than necessary. Inside, however, His mind was racing. His palms had become sweaty. What did she say after that? Nothing. I told her my husband cannot do such things. Alice smiled proudly. I know the kind of man I married. The words pierced him. For a second, guilt stabbed his chest. Years ago, he would have felt ashamed. Years ago, he would have confessed immediately. Years ago, he would have remembered the promise he made while kneeling before her. But wealth had changed something inside him. The poor, humble Uyana was disappearing. A new Uyana was emerging. One who believed money could solve everything. One who believed he was untouchable. One who believed he deserved more. Still, he pretended. He reached for Alice's hand. My wife. She smiled. You know me. Of course. I can never betray you. Alice squeezed his hand. I know. The conversation ended there. But that night, Uyana barely slept. His mind kept replaying one question. Why had the worker spoken to Alice? The following morning, he arrived at the supermarket earlier than usual. The atmosphere inside the building changed immediately. Workers noticed the anger on his face. Nobody dared speak to him. As soon as he entered his office, he sent for the female worker. The young woman arrived trembling. She already knew something was wrong. Good morning, sir. Uyana did not respond. He simply stared at her. The silence became uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke. Did you go to my wife's shop? The young woman swallowed. Yes, sir. Why? She shifted nervously. I was only trying to help. Help? His voice rose. Help who? The young woman became frightened. Sir, I thought Madam deserved to know. Know what? The office suddenly felt smaller. Several workers passing outside slowed down to listen. The young woman lowered her head. I thought she should know about the woman that keeps visiting. Uyana stood up. The sudden movement nearly made her jump. Listen carefully. His voice was cold. What happens in this supermarket is none of your business. Sir, I pay you to work. The young woman began shaking. Not to monitor my movements. Sir, I was only concerned. You are fired. The words landed like a slap. The young woman froze. Sir, you heard me. Tears immediately filled her eyes. Please, sir, I need this job. I have younger siblings. Uyana looked away. Months ago, he would have listened. Months ago, he would have shown mercy. Now, he felt powerful. And power can be dangerous in the hands of someone who has forgotten where they came from. Leave. The young woman burst into tears. Sir, please, get out. She slowly walked toward the door. When she reached it, she turned back. There was disappointment in her eyes. Not because she had lost her job, but because she realized the rumors were true. The man she once respected had changed. Completely. As she left, Uyana sat down heavily. His breathing was uneven. Deep inside, he knew he had made a mistake. But pride refused to let him admit it. Weeks passed. Sandra became even more involved in his life. She visited almost daily. Workers began treating her like one of the owners. Some even greeted her before greeting Uyana. The situation became increasingly obvious. Everyone could see it. Everyone except Alice. One afternoon, Alice decided to surprise her husband. She closed her shop early and drove to the supermarket. Workers greeted her respectfully. She smiled and walked confidently toward Uyana's office. Then she stopped. Sandra was sitting inside. Comfortably. Very comfortably. As though she belonged there. She wasn't sitting across from Uyana. She was sitting beside him, laughing. Alice frowned slightly. The atmosphere felt strange. Who is this? Sandra smiled immediately. Before she could answer, Uyana spoke. Oh, he laughed casually. This is Sandra. Alice waited. A business partner. Sandra extended her hand. Alice shook it politely. Something about the young woman made her uncomfortable. She could not explain why. Perhaps it was the familiarity. Perhaps it was the confidence. Perhaps it was the way Sandra looked at Uyana. But she ignored the feeling. After all, she trusted her husband. The visit lasted only a few minutes. Alice selected several household items. A worker volunteered to carry them to her car. Outside, the young man carefully arranged everything inside the trunk. Then he looked around. His expression changed. He appeared nervous. "Madam." Alice turned. "Yes?" The young man lowered his voice. "The lady in my boss's office." Alice sighed immediately. "Not again. I think she is seeing him, madam." Alice's expression hardened. The young man stopped talking. Alice raised her hand. "Please." Her voice was firm. "I don't want to hear it." The young man looked embarrassed. "But madam," I said enough. He immediately fell silent. Alice reached into her handbag and handed him some money. The young man accepted it reluctantly. "Thank you, madam." As she entered her car, he stood there watching, feeling helpless. He knew the truth. Many workers knew the truth. But sometimes, people only believe what they want to believe. And Alice wanted to believe her husband. So she drove away. 2 months passed. The distance between husband and wife continued growing. Slowly, quietly, painfully. Uyana rarely ate at home anymore. Business meetings, he claimed. Late-night appointments. Unexpected travel. Emergency contracts. The excuses never ended. Alice noticed everything, yet she remained silent. Sometimes she sat alone in their massive living room and remembered the old days. The days when they had nothing. The days when they shared one plate of food. The days when Uyana could not sleep without holding her hand. The days when love mattered more than money. Now the house felt enormous and lonely, very lonely. One night, Alice sat quietly in the living room. The magic comb rested in her lap. The same comb that had transformed their lives, of having more children. For a year, she had continued the ritual faithfully, every night, without fail. Yet the more wealth arrived, the more happiness disappeared. What kind of blessing destroys peace? The question haunted her. She sighed deeply, then began combing her hair. Once, twice, 3 times. When she finished, she sat quietly, listening. The house was silent. Eventually she stood up. The comb remained in her hand as she walked toward the bedroom. Inside, Uyana was already asleep, or at least he appeared asleep. Alice stared at him. Bundles of money on the floor. Something felt different. The man lying on that bed no longer looked like the husband she knew. She slowly sat beside him. Then she noticed his phone. It was lying on the bedside table. The screen suddenly lit up. A message notification appeared. Alice frowned. She wasn't the type to check phones. Never had been. Trust had always been enough. But tonight, something pulled at her heart. Slowly, she picked it up. Her hands trembled. The phone unlocked. And then she saw it. Messages. Hundreds of messages. Sandra. 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 Her stomach tightened. She opened one conversation. The first few messages made her uncomfortable. The next ones made her dizzy. Then she found the latest message, and her world stopped. Sandra. The doctor confirmed it today. I am pregnant. Alice stared at the screen. Her vision blurred. She blinked repeatedly. Perhaps she had read it wrong. Perhaps it was a joke. Perhaps. But there were more messages. More confirmations. More discussions. More plans. The truth became undeniable. Sandra was pregnant, and the father was Uyana. The phone slipped slightly in her hand. Her entire body felt cold. She slowly turned toward the sleeping man. The man for whom she sacrificed motherhood. The man she trusted blindly. The man who promised never to repay her with ingratitude. For a moment she wanted to wake him. She wanted to scream. She wanted answers. She wanted explanations. But something stopped her. Instead, she quietly placed the phone back. Then she walked out of the bedroom, one step at a time, as though carrying the weight of the world. Back in the living room, she sat down. The magic comb remained in her hand. Tears rolled freely down her cheeks. She looked at the object that had changed everything, and suddenly she understood. The wealth had come, but it had taken something precious in return. Not just children, not just peace. It had taken the man she loved. Alice stared at the comb for a long time. Then her expression changed. The sadness slowly disappeared. Something else replaced it. Something stronger. Something determined. Her fingers tightened around the comb. No. The word escaped her lips softly. Another tear rolled down. Never again. Then, with all her strength, Alice flung the magic comb across the room. The comb struck the wall, and the moment it touched the floor, the lights inside the mansion flickered violently. The following day, very early, Alice packed her bag secretly and moved out, and that was the end of Uyana.